There's a kind of power most people never understand because it doesn't scream, it doesn't chase, it doesn't show off, it just is. It's not arrogance, it's not apathy, it's called nonchalance, and in a world obsessed with noise, it's your secret weapon. Today we're diving deep into this misunderstood mindset because once you understand it, once you truly embody it, you won't need to fight for attention. Attention will fight for you. Everywhere you look, someone's broadcasting their every thought. Every win is shouted, every failure hidden, every emotion posted for likes. It's a world that equates volume with value. And in that storm, the man who says nothing stands out. Why? Because when everyone is performing, the one who isn't becomes magnetic. Nonchalance isn't about being numb. It's not laziness. It's about having control. Control over what you reveal, control over your reactions, control over yourself. When you stop flinching at every insult, stop chasing after every opportunity, stop needing everyone to understand you, you create mystery. And mystery, that's power. Being nonchalant doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care selectively. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to post every move. You don't need to win every argument. Instead of reacting to the world, you observe it. You listen more than you speak. You move when it matters. Not because you're rushed, but because you've chosen. The nonchalant mindset is rooted in discipline. It's not emotional coldness. It's emotional sovereignty. It's about being aware of everything and reacting to almost nothing. That kind of energy is rare. And what's rare becomes valuable. Think about this. In every room, there's always that one person who doesn't rush to speak. They don't jump into every conversation. They're not the loudest, but everyone's watching them. Why? Because silence makes people uncomfortable. And when someone is completely comfortable in silence, they become unpredictable, unreachable, unshakable. The more you talk, the more you give away. The more you chase, the less value you seem to have. But when you pull back, when you pause, when you hold your line, they come closer. This is not manipulation. This is presence. This is emotional power, and most importantly, it's earned. Niccolo Machiavelli, one of history's sharpest minds on power, wrote that a leader must appear composed, even if the world is falling apart around him. Because once people see your desperation, they can control you. They know where to push. They know how to make you fold. But when you show nothing, no need, no urgency, no fear, they're left with confusion. They don't know what you're thinking. They start second-guessing themselves. That's when you win. You ever notice how uncomfortable people get when you don't react? They tell a joke. You don't laugh. They insult you. You don't blink. They confess something, and you just listen. That stillness, it makes them nervous because they're used to people reacting. They're used to control. And when they can't read you, they lose that control. Nonchalance flips the dynamic. You don't chase, you don't perform, you don't prove, and suddenly they're trying to prove themselves to you. Let's be real. It's not easy to stay nonchalant in a world that constantly demands your reaction. It takes effort. It takes patience. It takes training. You're going to want to speak up when you're misunderstood. You'll want to react when someone disrespects you. You'll want to defend yourself when you feel judged. But here's the truth. The person who keeps their center when everyone else is spiraling, that's the person others start to respect. Not because they're loud, but because they're anchored. Everyone's trying to grab attention. On social media, in conversations, in relationships. But here's the paradox. The one who doesn't seem to care about attention gets the most of it. Why? Because people chase what they don't fully understand. They obsess over what ignores them. They crave the approval of the one who seems unaffected. Nonchalance creates this dynamic effortlessly, not by acting like you don't care, but by actually being selective with what you care about. Even in personal relationships, nonchalance is powerful. It's not the cold shoulder, it's not manipulation. It's being grounded enough not to need someone to complete you. You love, but you don't cling. You give, but you don't beg. You care, but your identity isn't attached to being accepted. That emotional independence is rare, and when you don't chase it, people are drawn to it. So let me leave you with this. Nonchalance is not about pretending, it's about becoming. Becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to be loud to be felt, who doesn't need to be seen to know their value, who doesn't need to chase anything, because what matters comes to them. The next time you're in a room full of noise, stay silent, observe, wait, let them reveal themselves. And when it's time to move, do it with precision. That's the kind of power that builds empires, the kind that shifts the energy of the room, the kind that never goes unnoticed. Real nonchalance doesn't come from ego, it comes from clarity. The man who is clear on who he is doesn't flinch. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't need to over-explain. Why? Because he already knows the outcome before it plays out. That clarity creates calm, and that calm, it's what makes him dangerous. Most people walk around carrying their insecurities on their sleeve. They over-explain. They try too hard to impress. They constantly adjust themselves based on who's watching. But the man who is nonchalant, he doesn't need the room to approve of him. He's already given himself permission. That's the kind of presence that turns heads, not because it's loud, but because it's unbothered. When people can't figure you out, they start obsessing over you. They want to know what you think. They want to know how you feel. They want your reaction, because they can't read you. You become the mystery in a world full of open books. And mystery isn't just attractive, it's powerful. Because what people can't predict, they can't control. That's why stillness feels like dominance. That's why detachment creates obsession. And that's why a man who controls his emotions ends up controlling everything else. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote that appearances are more important than reality, that a ruler doesn't have to be composed, he just has to look composed. Because once people believe you're in control, they treat you like you are. You become the standard, and the standard doesn't move for anyone. Look, nonchalance isn't about acting like nothing affects you. It's about training yourself to respond only to what actually matters, to stop giving away your attention like it's free, to stop letting urgency dictate your moves, because urgency is the enemy of power. The man who reacts to everything, who chases every chance, who needs immediate results, he burns out. He becomes predictable, and predictable means easy to manipulate. But the man who waits, who watches, who chooses the right moment, that man is always ahead, because while everyone else is reacting, he's calculating. Nonchalance is not a costume. It's not a trick. It's a discipline. You have to learn how to pause before you speak, how to delay before you act, how to observe before you reveal. You don't owe anyone your thoughts. You don't owe the world your reactions. The moment you learn to hold your emotions in check, the moment you stop flinching at every provocation, the moment you stop performing for attention, that's when you start to move like someone who cannot be shaken. Let people talk. Let them wonder. Let them create their own stories in the silence you leave behind. Because that silence, it's louder than any explanation you could give. Most people hate not knowing, so they fill the silence. They confess too much. They try too hard. They give themselves away, while you remain unreadable. This is how nonchalance becomes a weapon. You say nothing, and they reveal everything. You stay still, and they try to pull you in. You don't chase, and they feel the need to come closer. It's not about playing games. It's about holding your ground. Nonchalance is emotional power, psychological control, presence without performance. You don't need to be cold. You just need to be centered. You don't need to ignore people. You just need to choose when and how you engage. And when you do speak, when you do act, it carries weight because it's rare, because it's measured. Nonchalance teaches you to stop running after every opportunity, not because you don't want more, but because you know your value. Desperation repels. Detachment attracts. It's not about pretending not to care. It's about only caring where it counts. Every time you stay silent when someone tries to bait you, you gain control. Every time you delay a reaction to choose a response, you grow stronger. Every time you step back and let people wonder what's going on in your head, you become the most powerful person in the room, because now they're adjusting to you. You're no longer reacting to the world is reacting to you. There's a reason the calmest man often commands the most respect. It's not because he's above it all, it's because he's trained for it. He's faced chaos alone. He's sat with discomfort without speaking. He's mastered his own impulses. And that internal mastery, that's what makes him untouchable. People will call it cold. They'll say you're distant. They'll misunderstand it. But that's part of the price. Because if you want to be respected, you can't always be understood. You have to become comfortable being underestimated. You have to become dangerous in your silence. This is the mindset that builds real power. Power that doesn't need permission. Power that doesn't need to prove anything. Nonchalance is how you shift the frame. Not by taking control, but by never giving it away in the first place. You have to understand, true power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it says nothing at all. Because in a world where everyone's trying to be the loudest, the most visible, the most validated, the one who stays calm, detached, and unbothered becomes the one who stands out. Nonchalance isn't a tactic. It's a mindset, a lifestyle, a deep, unshakable commitment to self-control. It says, I know who I am, I know what I want, and I don't need to prove it to anyone. That kind of energy is unsettling to most people because it's rare, and rarity always feels like dominance. Everyone else is sprinting to be heard, to be liked, to be noticed. But the man who doesn't flinch, the man who doesn't chase, the man who doesn't need, he becomes gravity in a world full of noise. That's the paradox. When you stop chasing people, they start noticing you. When you stop explaining yourself, they start wondering about you. When you stop reacting emotionally, they start questioning their own behavior. This is psychological warfare without saying a word. Because here's the truth. Most people give away their power for free. They react without thinking. They overexpress without restraint. They seek validation from people who haven't even earned their vulnerability. But the nonchalant man, he doesn't give himself away so easily. He doesn't open up just because someone asks. He doesn't share his intentions until it's strategically useful. He doesn't rush into action just because emotions are high, and because of that, people respect him. Even if they don't understand him, even if they call him cold, even if they feel unsettled by his stillness, because stillness is power. In every interaction, in every space you enter, you're either controlling the emotional climate or reacting to someone else's. And the man who is nonchalant, he controls it without trying. His tone doesn't shift with pressure. His eyes don't dart with insecurity. His posture doesn't change depending on who walks into the room. He's centered, he's grounded, he's sovereign. And that kind of energy is magnetic. Why? Because people are addicted to certainty, but they're drawn to mystery. And nonchalance is the perfect balance of both. You don't show too much. You don't speak too soon. You don't give away your thoughts unless they're worth more than the silence they'll replace. Machiavelli understood this theater of power. He knew that people believe what they see, more than what you are. If you appear desperate, they treat you like you're weak. If you appear calm, they assume you're in control. And when you appear unaffected, when you give nothing, they're forced to fill in the blanks, to project, to guess, to chase. And in that confusion, you hold all the cards. Here's what most people don't realize. Nonchalance is not about being indifferent. It's about being intentional. You feel things, you care, you love, but you don't allow emotion to make decisions for you. You wait, you think, you choose your response. And when you do respond, it lands harder. It echoes louder. Because silence was the prelude. Because restraint made space for impact. Let's be clear. This doesn't mean you suppress everything. It means you channel it. You don't show all your cards just to feel seen. You don't share your plans just to be praised. You don't expose your pain just to feel less alone. You know that emotion is a currency, and you spend it with precision. Because once people know how to provoke you, they will. Once they know what gets a reaction, they'll use it. But if you reveal nothing, they can't reach you. And when they can't reach you, they chase, they adapt, they respect. You might lose some attention. You might be misunderstood. But what you gain is more powerful than approval. You gain peace. You gain leverage. You gain the ability to sit across from chaos and still choose silence. And that's a flex no ego can fake. The man who reacts to everything is a puppet of the moment. But the one who waits, who holds his line, who stays silent under pressure, he becomes the puppeteer. He doesn't fight every insult. He doesn't answer every question. He doesn't need to be loud to be known. His presence speaks louder than performance ever could. So here's your shift. Don't aim to be understood by everyone. Aim to be undeniable to the right ones. Don't aim to be the loudest in the room. Aim to be the one everyone listens to when you finally speak. Don't aim to chase attention. Let attention chase you because of your stillness, your composure, your nonchalance. This is how legacies are built. Not through noise, but through control. And if this message resonates with you, if this is the energy you want to build in your life, then you're in the right place. This is what we do here. At Psychra, we study power. We study presence. We study the quiet psychological forces that build unshakable men. We go deeper than surface-level motivation. We break down ancient strategy, modern mindsets, and everything in between. So if you're ready to master your emotions, if you're ready to stop reacting and start leading, if you're ready to build real presence, not for show, but for life, subscribe to Psychra right now, because the world doesn't need another person shouting to be heard. It needs more people who can rule with silence. And that's what we're building here. Quiet strength, deliberate action, unshakable self-respect. Join us and start mastering the power of nonchalance.